All right. Welcome to the Big Story Podcast. I'm Alex Morrissey. You can add the other guys' names in later in post. Today we have a great guest. Daniel HANSEN has joined us from lands unknown. We're going to find out. Daniel, thank you so much for being here today.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
My
So,
pleasure.
where are you?
I'm in Korea,
Nice.
Seoul at the moment.
I hear there's really good fried chicken in Seoul.
Oh, really? Yeah,
Yeah,
I haven't tried that.
Yeah.
Actually, they only have this kind of rice pot. That seems to be the only dish
Oh, okay.
anywhere I go. Yeah.
They adopted the fried, like, so after the Korean War, like one of the things that stuck was fried chicken from the Americans, and they do their own kind of spin on fried chicken, and apparently it's quite good. So maybe you can get that along with one of your rice pots.
Yeah, I'll check that out. Yeah.
You get right on that.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go out on a limb here, and I'm going to say that you're probably not from Korea. So where are you originally from?
Yeah, I'm from Sweden originally. Yeah. And I have no business being in Korea either. I'm just on my way home to China. This is like I have to be here. I have to make Korea my departure country in order to be allowed to enter China. So that's why I'm here.
Travel back and forth. I see. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's like that was the deal going to Cuba for a long time. Like you had to go to Mexico or somewhere in Central America to fly into Cuba rather because you couldn't get there from America. Like so.
Right. Yeah.
You know, whatever. Other people think it's a big problem. So here's the workaround. Well, that's interesting. So home base Sweden, but
no, home base is China. I live there since.
You live in China?
I live in China since 2015, maybe 16, something like that.
Okay, wow. So what brought you to China?
Yeah, my wife is Chinese, so we moved there. We weren't supposed to stay there. We were just visiting, and then then I was working a lot in India. And then the pandemic hit, and now we're here. So yeah,
that's interesting. Yeah, no, I feel that where we live, we kind of moved here with the idea of like, oh, we won't be here for long, and then it's been 10 years or so. So that's what happened. If you're not vigilant as to where you want to live, you're going to live where you are. That's a very deep statement. You can take that one and write that down. So what do you, like? So I mean, like, so we met, via Instagram. You are a prolific artist. Like you're always posting things that like it's just, and the variety is just this massive spread of work. And I go, okay, well, so I'm always curious, like, what's he doing? Like, because it's all varied, and like, so I'm guessing there's a lot of like sort of developmental design illustration that you're doing for whatever projects you're being brought onto, and maybe storyboard artwork as well. I don't know if that's part of your
that's right. I mean, a lot of it is made to look like it belongs to something that is. I mean, a lot of it is for pitch work of different kinds, and so it's made to look as if, okay, this is just we're scratching the surface. Here are 2 pages out of 100, but actually there are only those 2 pages. So that will make the perception of this vast variety in my Instagram feed.
Well, I mean, even if, I mean, listen, we all have the story we're telling to the world, and that's the modern life. But like I mean, you have like, there is a broad sort of execution of styles that you're doing. So this isn't sort of like you're just, you're the guy who does this one thing and you're just doing it in, with different colors. Like there's a huge thing. So like, how, like, is this something you were like pursuing? Like, I mean, like, was this like an educational pursuit? Like going, oh, I'm really into, conceptual design, because that sort of came into the world after that job was created. So like I was too old for that to become a thing. And I was, when they first said, oh yeah, conceptual design, I'm like, that's the greatest job in the world. You get to draw, come up with ideas, and then, go home. So
Yeah. No, I mean, yeah, but I'm not that. I mean, I'm not a concept sort of painter or anything. No, I don't know if it's a style. Everything I think style-wise is sort of inspired by comics, I guess.
mhm.
So if there is sort of a style variety, it is still within the span of okay. So this is my four Möbius sort of. This is me mimicking Möbius, or this is me mimicking Frank Miller, or something like that. I mean,
You've named like
yeah,
half the comic book artists in history.
yeah, okay,
Right. I
sure.
mean,
A
are
couple
we all
of,
like taking one of those two guys? Like, there's probably 5 artists that the rest of us have been copying for the last 50 years. Uh,
sure.
yeah. Well, so did you like go to art school, or were you like, no? Okay.
No, 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 I studied other things, and I did take kind of some figure drawing classes, sort of.
Okay.
But no, I never went to art school,
Okay.
which I kind of
I'm always
regret. But yeah,
yeah, I'm fascinated by people who sort of create their own sort of world, professionally without sort of the structure of like, a university to say, here's here, we've given you all the tools, now go do the thing. Um, so it's interesting. So like when you were young, were you like, I mean, you clearly draw, like you draw like I'm assuming you draw quickly, just looking at
yeah,
your work. So like, were you just like a kid just always drawing stuff? Like I don't know
yeah.
if you saw our interview with Linnea Sterta. I,
Oh yeah, yeah,
yeah,
I
yeah.
think so. Yeah,
I mean, she's brilliant, you know?
yeah,
And, but she was like this kind of self-taught artist who then went to a prestigious art school, but then dropped out because it wasn't her, it didn't really fit her ethos,
hmm.
which is, good on her. Um, so like, were you a kid like drawing everything, or how do you come into
Yeah,
this?
yeah. No, I drew from early on, and
Yeah.
yeah, no, yeah, I was better than the other kids, I think.
Mhm.
So that became sort of my thing. That was my part of who I was. Yeah, and I mean, no, I did draw from very early on and all the way through the teen years, where I may have strayed into other sort of things, but also sort of creative with creative aspirations, maybe writing
Yeah.
or whatever. And yeah, but no, I didn't go to art, and I didn't even I'd never considered it. I didn't think that this would be a career or anything. It just sort of happened to become one.
Well, okay. How
Yeah,
does how does somebody who grows up in Sweden, doesn't go to art college, end up in China and India and other places
yeah.
being hired to make artwork for various projects? Like, how does that just accidentally happen?
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, no, but see, yeah, I started sort of. I had friends who were more who did plan their life and had ideas of how to make a career, and some of those went into media production of some sort, and kind of pulled me along with them there. I sort of got to do a bit of storyboarding and concepting on a few on sort of animation and to the animation studios,
Yeah.
and that became the not the school, but at least it sort of explained to me that okay,
Right.
people pay for this. You can do the thing, and then you get money. So
It's a
yeah, okay.
mystery, isn't it? Like, it's a total mystery, like when you're young, because these things that we see, whether it's an animated project or a cartoon on television, or a comic book, we don't like even though there might be a name of the people who did it, we don't really connect the fact. We figure, well, there must be just some amazing room that these people exist in,
Hmm.
and
Yeah,
this is what they do. um, but then you sort of, the veil is lifted when somebody like, by what I feel is mostly a mistake, lets you in the door and says, okay, well, hey, we need you to help us do this thing. And you're like, oh, you're all just like me. Like, there's no real
yeah, yeah,
like
exactly. Yeah.
secret handshake. Um,
Oh yeah, yeah. you just need to be. I want to do it, and
Yeah.
yeah, that's sort of that is
Sure.
how you divide the
Right. That,
people up.
when that question, the inevitable question, well, can you, like, the answer to whatever follows, can you, is usually
Yeah.
just yes, and then
Yeah.
you, well, figure it out. You know, like,
Yeah. Yeah, sure. No, and I mean, yeah, yeah, that is my career. I can't sort of explain it any other way. But yeah, I've been everywhere, and I've done a lot of different things. And at the core of it, I've been just a sketch artist, and yeah. So
so like, I mean, like, you're for your, I'm gonna hop around here, but like for your, like, your weekly work routine, like you're like, so you're in China or India working, like where, like, are you like being brought into a production company, like where they need people to visualize things?
yeah, I mean, for the Bollywood and the India stuff, I do have a sort of designation at a studio, at the VFX studio, as a art creative and art director or whatever I am. But my role is not really that. I'm usually, they loan me to the production guys or to the producer or the director, and then I will be handling kind of pre-production stuff
Yeah.
on my own. Either I do it myself or I bring in some people to help me out. But so yeah, at the end I will be credited as art directing the VFX, but I don't do that. I don't know. Maybe I do it, but
Right.
so what? Anyone can do that. So
Well, I mean, sure, anyone could do it, but like, if you plop me in the room, I would need someone who's already done it to kind of point me the directions that I need to go. Like, you know,
yeah, sure. But I mean, there are so many other supervisors that are, I mean, this doesn't look real.
yeah,
This looks real. This
right.
is the sort of, I mean, except for that. No, I mean, I'm making
Yeah, no,
simplifying it, but I'm just saying that what I do is something else. The only times I feel I contributed something is when I was part of the pre-production phase. Yeah, so that is usually what
so
I
I guess walk me through the food chain of that one. So like, so you get the production company says, oh, okay, the VFX company says, all right, Danny, we got, you know, here's a project, come on in. And so you go in to work, and are you in a room with, are you in a room with, you know, subordinates, or is it with you with writers? Or is it with you with the producer? Like, what's the,
it's me and the producer and the director.
right.
I feel, yeah, that is usually how
And then
it goes.
so it's sort of kind of talking through the story,
Yeah.
and pulling out sort of key sort of elements of the story, whether it's characters or an environment or what, or a thing, a ray gun, whatever the thing is. And then you then sit there, I guess, are you doing with paper, or are you doing it all on a tablet? Like, what's the, like, your workflow?
Yeah. Yeah, I use the iPad mostly, but no, I mean, I will, if things don't fall into place, I will retreat and do it on paper,
Okay.
because that is how I sort of trigger my. That is how the creative juices get flowing, I think. But otherwise, no, I will not sit with an iPad in front of people or anything like that. I will partake in all the meetings and try to sort of figure out what it is that is needed. Yeah.
It's the worst feeling, man. Like, I was, so here, Saturday, this last Saturday was Free Comic Book Day here in the United States. So they give away, you know, the comics, and I did it a bunch of years ago, maybe 4 years ago, for our local comic book store. They asked me, and I said, yeah, sure, I'll do it. And I hadn't sat since like the 90s to do anything like this. So, and I remember sitting there, and I'm like, I'm terrified. Like, because I hadn't sat and drawn with like people watching you, you know, for like, you know, in so long. And like, it was like this horrifying, you know, sort of mental, you know, sort of exercise. And then you do it, and then, you know, whatever, who cares? Like, you have a match.
Yeah, that's whenever I've been working in a studio, I mean, the first thing I do is, okay, a corner, and then I will sort of turn the Cintiq towards the corners, so no one can
so nobody
sneak up on me. Yeah.
Right. Never let them have your back. That's always
no, that's the first rule.
Yeah. Well, okay, so then you sit there and you take your notes and maybe your doodles or whatever while you're having your conversations. Then you go and you retreat and you sort of produce the iterations and ideas for the thing, and then I'm guessing
Yeah,
these get printed out and they go up on a wall and you guys start talking about the pieces.
yeah.
Okay.
And I mean, I don't know if this is. I assume that there is more sort of freedom maybe in Bollywood and in other movie industries, because here you can really sort of come up with something completely that changes everything.
Right.
I mean, you can sort of come back. Well, I think maybe this, and and they okay, let's tear the whole set and do that instead. I mean,
Oh
that
my,
happens and can be sort of rewarding in a way. So yeah, and actually that happened now, because I was before my sort of 6 months on the road. I was in the UK before, where the current movie I'm working on
right. I
has
think you and I were chatting at the time about
yeah.
that. Yeah.
Yeah. I was in quarantine, I think, then, or something.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, so they it's a sci-fi movie that we're working on, and it's kind of, what's it called? Alita Battle Angel, is that the name? Yeah, similar to that one. So it's a street fighting kind of thing that is at the center of it all. And they had already built a set which was the sort of fighting ring.
Okay.
And they said, okay, we don't know what this should look like. Can you sort of help us? And I did something. And they said, this is much better. And just tear it off. And then then you find yourself with the set designer and saying, well, how big is this? Is this 2 meters? Or is this 4 meters? So I don't know. It's just you decide.
Right. Right. So
And then they rebuild it. And then 10 other meetings. But anyway, yeah.
oh,
That is how it goes.
like, and the funny thing is, like, I guess, like you're saying, that sense of satisfaction is like kind of great, but it's also a little like, I mean, do you like, is it in the back of your head going like, oh boy, like this could like affect a lot of people's day if I if I say something like,
Yeah, no, I don't I don't take that into consideration. No, but yeah, they didn't have to tear it down. They could have sort of implemented my ideas anyway. But so someone else chose that. No,
okay,
that's fine. Yeah.
yeah. No, I'm not suggesting that you're some sort of like, autocrat diva, saying no, change this whole thing.
Yeah. No.
Well, how long? I mean, so how long have you been doing this kind of work?
Uh, yeah. In the currently for the same sort of outfit, it's been 5 years now, I think. But
Okay.
before that, I was doing more or less the same work, but in Dubai. But also for some of the sort of Bollywood stuff.
All right.
So yeah.
So, I mean, it's so interesting because, I mean, this is, it's a huge world, and we tend to think very much locally, in our terms of our careers. Like we're fortunate if we have jobs that sort of expand across the whole country. Like if what you do may get spread around the whole country, and then you're really lucky and fortunate if this work that you do goes around the world. Like these are kind of like, and the handful of times that happens, in many people's careers, it's like really like, wow, cool. But rarely do we think like, all right, cool, I'm going to go to Dubai and do the same kind of stuff that I do here. Like like we don't tend to think like I'll just go elsewhere in the world and do this job. So,
Yeah.
how does a young boy from Sweden end up, traveling the world with a pencil? I know it's not a pencil. I know you're not using an Apple pencil.
Yeah. No, but I don't, again, I think it starts with I never made a plan, so I just sort of yeah, I went where the opportunities
Like water.
yeah,
You're water.
like yeah.
You're filling a
I'm
vacuum. You're like,
surfing the wave of opportunity.
yeah. Oh, here's a cup. I'll just fill this cup up. Go.
Yeah.
So. I mean, like, how old were you when you first started working outside of Sweden? I mean, like, were you like out of
Mhm.
university or like?
Yeah, I mean, I was freelancing a lot, sort of in my 20s. So then I was sort of free to move anywhere, but I never sort of went outside of Europe then.
Yeah.
And yeah, I don't know. Was it 12 years ago that I actually sort of left Europe? Maybe something
Okay.
like that. Yeah, I don't know.
Were you working for the mob or something, and then like you had to leave?
Yeah.
Just
All right.
ask a
So
question.
let's not get into that.
Okay.
Yeah.
We'll erase that part later.
Oh yeah, good.
No,
I might have been. I don't know. I don't know who I worked for in Dubai actually. So I mean,
you're like, I don't ask the
I
question.
know that people who were above me went to jail after I left. So that is actually yeah. Okay.
So it was actually a good question, but I didn't know it was a good question.
Yeah.
Okay,
So, and I think yeah.
Well, listen,
Anyway.
I can tell you there's plenty of people I've worked for who either should be in jail or have been in jail. You know, I mean, this is business. You know, they're not always the nicest and sweetest people. Okay, so now we just you and I have talked offline, but like you're also, I mean, you are a big fan of comic books. Like it's not like comic books are not part of your life and your sort of your passions. So were they part of sort of like a dream, like because I mean because clearly you're saying like, hey, I don't really sit down with a spreadsheet and figure out the next 5 years of my career, but like like obviously you like comic books and you love to,
Yeah. No. Sure.
I mean
Yeah.
very much in that vein. So do you want to do comic books, right? I mean,
Yeah.
I mean, I know the answer to the story, like surprise, surprise, but like, how are you?
No.
Yeah,
No. Yeah. Sure. I mean, I think maybe but again, I mean, I'm from Sweden. I don't think if I wasn't from the US or maybe France, it would have been sort of easier to sort of pursue comics to begin with. But yeah, I didn't do it. I just took whatever came my way. But I
right.
have drawn a lot of things that looks like comics and
You have.
sort of aspire to be comics and so on. I mean, whether it be pitch work or whether it be, I mean, also when I was freelancing in my 20s, I was doing a lot of this kind of deviant art assignments where someone needed 4 pages of comic book art to pitch to someone or whatever.
Yeah, totally.
So yeah, so I've done sort of tons of pages for innumerable projects, but yeah, but I never done the proper thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, but the plan is to do that now. I mean, I have sort of landed the project, and once I get out of this, once I complete my task for the movies I'm doing now, I will be doing pages.
That's amazing. Okay, so like, so how does that feel? Because I mean, like, I understand like okay, cool, I'll put together some pitch pages. I'm willing to do that. Maybe somebody pays you some money for that, whatever the thing is. And it's an exciting opportunity to think like, okay, cool, maybe a project will come out of this. But like to know that like a comic book project, a graphic novel size project is coming up next.
Mm-hmm.
Like, how does that feel? Because like, I mean, like, I will say like when I first, my first assignment, landed in my lap, as a comic book artist, like it was like it was just amazing. Like to think that like what I would sit down and put on on a page was going to be like printed and become a thing that people could read. Like that was because it completed a circle, the circle of sort of inspiration to creation that comics represented for me. So like how does it feel for you to think about that?
No, I mean, yeah, I do want it, and I think maybe I wanted it. I mean, I want to see my stuff in print. That is the thing. I mean, so sure. I'm very pleased that that we're going that way now. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, yeah, because even though there's something appealing about the other side also, to not have to see your stuff in print when you're sort of, this is just sort of vapor, we're doing it now, no one cares, and you will not show it to anyone else ever.
No.
That is also kind of nice, but yeah, not all the time. So.
No, I get that. I mean, like, and so many, like, it's funny, like, I look at like, at my career in design. So my career in design has been a lot of, it's very similar. There's a lot of sort of development work, and so many design projects, for companies don't actually end up either completed or, in the market the way that we intend. So you kind of have this really interesting sort of relationship with the work, and then you can look back and go like, well, what can I show of this? And you go, ugh, like nothing. Like, I designed a bottle for Ralph Lauren fragrances for Polo Red, and that project Polo Red came from two different projects where I had done hundreds. I'm not joking when I say hundreds of bottle designs, and then like the projects, like you get the email saying, well, we're stopping this and we're stopping that, and then you get an email 2 weeks later like, hey, we're revising it, but we're combining both of them, get going again. So then you start designing again, and it's just one of these things where, and you go, well, I like all this work that never sees the light of day ever. So like, I like your attitude of like, it's in the vapor, who cares? Like,
I was doing this some online game that was developing some new kind of customizable avatar system.
Okay.
And then they needed someone up the chain decided that they needed cheats of ethnic profiles, and sort of decide how far can we go with the caricature without it becoming offensive.
Yeah.
So then it fell into my lap to sort of illustrate that. I drew sort of hundreds upon hundreds of sort of every stage until it became offensive, and then it went to review, and people sort of said, okay, not this one, but this one. And I mean,
like, okay,
I don't know how many. There's like there's a drawer full. Yeah. I can't show any of that stuff to anyone.
No.
And maybe I shouldn't even mention it here.
No, it's okay. No, but it is kind of interesting. But to the contrary, like with a comic book, the comic books aren't these huge productions. They're not big. They're not like, there's not a team of people, of 100 people. There's not this, $50-100 million budget. Like, there's none of that stuff. This is it's what the cost is to print it and to pay the people who make it. Like, this is what we have to, this is our nut. Maybe marketing. And it's like so different because there's like what you do, like 99% of what you're going to put down on paper is going to be what's going to be printed. Maybe you'll have to change one or two things, maybe. And it's such a different sort of mindset because you will, it's all there and it's going to go out there and it's going to get printed and people are going to read it. And it's kind of a cool thing. I mean, like you mentioned Mobius and you mentioned Frank Miller, I think before we started recording. Two people, people, watching or listening, if you should check out those guys. They were pretty good artists. So like, were those the people you were reading growing up? Like, were they the comic book? Like,
no, Mobius actually I didn't read until much later. I mean, I read just Blueberry, sort of his that stuff, and I almost prefer that still, even though that is faux pas to admit. But Miller I read. Miller was like the everyone has the same story, right? I mean, but Miller explained comics to me. So everything before that was just sort of mindless entertainment, and then he came along, and I read. There was the Daredevil run. That's sort of okay. Now I understand. Yeah, that was my first.
Wow. Okay, so you actually started at really kind of ground zero with Frank Miller's.
Yeah, actually, I'm not sure because I mean I'm only following. I follow the Swedish sort of editions that they're releasing, and I don't know when they started publishing the Daredevil run, but I know that there was also 2 Spider-Man issues that he made maybe before that. I don't know if that is true, but
Yeah, Frank had
yeah,
done a bunch. I mean, he'd done comics, I think, probably from like the mid to later
sure.
70s. So, into when he started doing Daredevil, when he took over, was it 181, 184, somewhere around there? Um, or
Yeah.
81, 84, I can't remember what the number was. But yeah, it was, I mean, I was reading comics at the time, and I can't remember how it happened, but someone was like, "Oh, you should check out Daredevil. Like it's good again." Like so, like when you're a
Mm.
kid, you buy random comic books, and you would buy Daredevil, and it was just kind of it was kind of like a boring Batman kind
Mm.
of comic book. When I was a kid reading it, I was like, okay, well, it's all right. It's kind of cool. The guy's cool, and then someone's like, oh, you should check out Daredevil. So this is probably like 1981 or something around there, and boom, like there's this very gritty, thing that's happening on the page,
Mm.
very black and white, Klaus Jansson's textures that he was adding to the artwork. It was just spectacular. And that,
And very experimental also. I mean,
oh
it's like I don't know. There's one issue with the Stilt Man that is just these sort of vertical, long
yeah,
panels and sort of very playful in a way that the Marvel comics weren't. I thought. I mean, except for this.
it's like, the thing is like it's like the legends, like so. I don't know. I can't, I'm sure it happened before in many other books. So, props to those people who I'm not talking about. But like with Daredevil, it's the story that like you always hear, that you want to hear, and that you would love to be a part of, which is, oh, Marvel had a comic book that wasn't selling very well, so they just gave it to Frank Miller, and he's like, so another example would be Walt Simonson on Thor. So like
Mhm.
nobody was buying Thor, and Walt's like, hey, like I've got some ideas, I want to write it and draw it, and they're like, okay, sure, cool, whatever, and turns out to be this huge gigantic hit, but same thing with Frank on Daredevil. And that's the dream. Like that's the dream for every sort of like fan of comic book superheroes, like to get on those obscure books and turn it into a hit. Um, and that book, I mean, you're right. I mean, that changed modern comic books completely.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah, he done so many great things, of course, after that also. But somehow, a lot of the sort of major things, the changes, and sort of are there already. I mean, you just need to go through that actually,
Yeah.
uh, and yeah.
So like, so because so for me, so like being a big fan of the Daredevil run, like I mean, obsessively big and interested in the whole thing, and he then hung a tight left and went over to DC and did Ronin, which
Mm-hmm.
was so vastly different. Um,
Mm-hmm.
except for there were samurai swords in it. Like okay, like the subject matter was like somewhat connectable, and I freaking fell in love with that because it was just so cool. And I guess I guess he hopped back and did the Wolverine thing, that Wolverine
Mm-hmm.
run. So like I mean it was an interesting kind of period where he was kind of moving back and forth and really playing in different formats. And then obviously the Dark Knight. Like these are like
Yeah,
so much is happening for him, like in a 5-6 year period of creation.
yeah. I read it in that order. I read the Daredevil and the Wolverine stuff,
Yeah.
Dark Knight. I didn't get to Ronin until much later. That I had to sort of buy a collected thing.
Mhm.
I don't think it was published in Sweden at all.
Okay.
So
No, I don't think
uh,
it sold very well. I think it was one of those
yeah,
comics that like I think people picked it up thinking, "Oh, cool, Frank Miller," and they look at it and they go, "I don't. There's no superheroes I know in here, and I don't understand this." Like just by looking at it, and I think it didn't sell so big, but
yeah,
so many
uh,
artists love it.
yeah, yeah. No, it's a great work, but I can see why it wouldn't sort of please the fanboys necessarily. I mean, it is also style wise pretty it's a complicated style he's choosing. I mean, it's not beautiful. It is sort of something else.
Yeah,
Very,
I mean, it feels like, what was that Electra book, that sort of hardcover.
yeah, the Lives Again. Or,
Yeah, Lives Again. Yeah, I think that's what. Yeah, and
yeah,
it kind of feels like in that vein, with that very thin line and then thick black kind of
yeah,
world, where the colors kind of carry the sort of the tone of the page.
sure. And I mean, the Johnson inking was sort of making everything sensuous and beautiful on Daredevil, uh, but yeah, still, I mean, for me, it was always about this sort of page layouts. That is the sort of
Yeah,
the real sort of, that is what makes the impact. And yeah, that was obviously there in Ronin as well.
I'm fascinated. I'm fascinated with storytelling, and how we learn visual storytelling, because it is not like, oh, anybody can do this, even though I think anybody can learn to do it. But I think there's something that's in the brain of storytellers, whether they are writers or artists, like they absorb this kind of stuff. So looking at, reading Daredevil, over and over again, when you're first encountering it, or whatever the comic books are, or whatever the movies are, or whatever the books that you read, like these things that you're kind of engaging with, they're sort of kind of rewiring your head, because I don't ever recall like looking at a comic as a kid and going, oh, well, yeah, he's picking the thing up in this panel and then bringing it into this panel and giving it to another person, or putting it into the machine. Well, that's how you tell a story. Like, I don't think that was anything. But then when you are faced with the task of, you need to tell a story, the choreography of what you've ever absorbed kind of comes back.
Yeah, no, I think the rewiring part is right. You need that first exposure somehow, maybe,
Yeah.
unless it's genetic. I don't know, because there are a lot of people who don't understand, who are dyslexic to comics,
Sure.
who can't sort of decipher it, who don't. Yeah.
No, I mean, it's like, I grew up in a household. My mother was super, super encouraging. Like, oh yeah, paint, draw, like do all those things. I think secretly she wanted, me to be some sort of artist of some type, and also go to Yale. I don't know. Whatever. Anyway, that was her secret plan for me. But I remember, like, but she was pretty, like, she was downplayed comic books all the time. Like, there was not this sort of like, oh, that's great. She was like, I don't like them. I don't like the word balloons. Like, she just didn't like the format so much. And maybe she thought it was like low art. But she also may not have understood it. So that might, like, to your point, she may not have been able to look at it and get the sort of the storytelling, devices.
Yeah. Certainly that was the case with my mother anyway. But I don't know. There's some. I'm not sure if I'm misremembering, but there's a story that might be from something I read with an interview with Barry Windsor Smith, which was he had this girlfriend for many years, and she was like the first one he used to showcase a new page to.
Yeah.
And she would always say, yeah, it's great, it's beautiful, or whatever. And one day she said, yeah, it is great, but why do they all have tattoos in their faces? And sort of it's like the hatching. She has interpreted this as tattoos for years. On the
surface piece. That's so interesting. That's so wow. I've never heard that. That's amazing.
I don't know if it's Barry. I told you before. I claimed that it's Barry Windsor Smith, or maybe it was someone else. I don't know. But
yeah. Well, I wanted to be Barry Windsor Smith because I like thinking about Barry Windsor Smith's artwork.
Yeah.
Well, because me and the two guys are not here. We were all students of Will Eisner. So Will's thing that he would always tell us, he was like, what I would do is I would show my mailman my pages. So whenever his mailman came to deliver the mail, like, I guess Will would ambush the guy with comic book pages and say, "Do you understand what's happening here?" You know, because
Uh,
for Will, it was like storytelling was everything. Like it was like,
mm,
how are you conveying this story across the
mhm,
pages? And so like he would get is the problem is like I thought about it for years and thought like, well, the problem is he's also educating his mailman. So eventually the
mhm,
mailman's going to understand the shorthand and go, yeah, I know
mhm,
what's going on here, versus being completely naive.
mhm.
So, so I'm sorry, Will, wherever you are in space and time, your plan was was not foolproof. Um,
Yeah. No, I don't know. I don't want to counter anything with license. I mean, he's before I discovered Frank Miller. I think I did discover Will Eisner, and that was also kind of a sort of it was sort of halfway to Miller. I had sort of,
yeah,
oh, okay, this is what you can do with the layout. But of course, no, I can see that he would want his mailman to understand everything. But do you really want that? I don't know. I mean, I feel that
yeah. Well, I think it's
to
a
return. Yeah, Miller has said something like he wants. He's always talking about how a movie maker, he has time in his hands, right? And the sort of comic book artist doesn't sort of, he doesn't have that as at his disposal really. You have to sort of trick the reader into slow it down or to sort of study the image. And
yep.
one way to do it is to sort of making it a, you have to decipher the page, right? You have to
Mhm.
somehow yeah, you have to piece things together, and that is the exercise of reading it.
Yes.
And yeah, you can make that to different levels, but if you want to sort of challenge the reader a little bit, maybe the mailman will not understand it. But yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's, I mean, because I think maybe Will was coming in from like that sort of that philosophy of everybody's X is their first X. So whatever the thing is, so
Mm,
everybody's comic is their first comic. Like, so if you approach whatever the thing you're making as, well, here's a person who's going to come to it who's never seen it before. So is this something that they can understand? And I think there's a lot of value to that, except
sure.
for I don't know if it elevates the form. And I'm not saying it
Yeah.
dumbs it down, it just sort of simplifies it. And I think that, to the point of what you were saying about Frank, is that he's challenging the reader to engage with the format and learn, and yeah, I mean, you do have to kind of hit the brake. How do we hit that brake, slow that reader's eye down? Um, because you just can't be reading a page comic book pages at the same pace, because they have, there's an emotional arcs for the
Yeah.
characters. um yeah,
Ideally. Yeah.
no,
I don't know if
that's
you have you. What's his name? That's I'm not up on manga, but I've been reading someone named Taiyo Matsumoto lately, which really been amazing. But anyway, he is so bold. I mean, I don't understand how he dares to sort of, because he really challenges the reader. I don't
Mhm.
understand how I'm able to decipher what he's putting down there, but
Right.
somehow I am. But I can't understand how he can be confident that I will understand, pick up on what he's doing. That is just beyond me. I don't know how he's doing it, but somehow it works, and somehow that is the sort of reward of reading his stuff. So
Yeah. Well, I think that's, I mean, and that's like, that's a, that's an interesting sort of segue, but like, it's a super fascinating thing when you're reading comic books from different, countries, because the sensibilities are different. They're just not the same as where you come from. So like reading manga is very different than reading American comics, which is very different than reading French comics. Like there is such a disparity in sort of what the creators are focusing on for the reader to engage with.
yeah,
I like my all-time favorite, manga artist is Masamune Shirow, who did Appleseed and
yeah,
Ghost in the Shell, and et cetera and so forth. So that guy, like, once again, like you were saying, makes these really interesting choices on storytelling that you have to kind of like go like, okay,
yeah.
what's going on here? Like, and you know, some people may say it's confusing, and so, but like I like the challenge of going back and going, okay, wait, what is happening here? What is the intention here? And I don't think of it as a failure. I think of it as sort of like literature, like you can't read great literature and then, and go, okay, I get it. Like, I mean,
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
like people who are smarter than you are making things, like you have to work to get up to understand them. Like it's kind of, that's the deal.
Yeah.
Yeah. So who else? I mean, like, so I mean, yeah. So I mean, I can see I can see the Eisner in your work too. Like I can kind of see that sort of that figurative movement that Eisner was really good with, like, with clothing. Like you do have a lot of that kind of in your in your work, which is kind of like. Have any examples like that I can, because I don't have it all memorized. That's very Mobius. There's your Mobius piece.
Sure. Yeah. No, but you're right. I mean, I know there is like if I'm drawing like the sole of a shoe, that just turns into spirit immediately. That is just Will Eisner.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sure.
Well, I mean, it's it's no leap of logic. Frank Miller got a lot of stuff from Will Eisner. I mean, it's just right there on the page. Like there's this graphic urban beauty.
Yeah, and the whole noir vibe to it.
Yeah, no, it's fascinating. So like, I mean, do you have like, so like I'm while we were talking, I was thinking about when you were talking about storytelling, and like I was thinking like how like there's a lot of instinct involved in storytelling. Like I think it's sort of like this dance that you're performing, but like it's all sort of kind of coming out without a whole lot of thought. But like, do you have sort of principles, like like your own principles when it comes to storytelling, like that you like kind of live by? Like I know it's kind of I mean, maybe it's a too question, but like I just like, as I think about like how, like when I would tell a story like visually, I would like, like I'm like was a big fan, like, okay, I'm always try to move the camera
Sure.
through the through the shots of the page, unless it benefits the story greatly by locking off the camera and then letting the actions happen in a sort of repetitive fashion.
Yeah, no, of course. I mean, that goes for storyboarding also. I mean, unless you do want to sort of find a new angle that somehow depicts whatever is going on there even better. Yeah, sure. I don't know. Yeah. But how to So this is what I will be working on now then.
It's so that it's great. Like like this little opening sequence in here is just wonderful. Dana, this is just it's great.
Yeah, this is both Miller and Eisner, I would say. Right?
Yeah,
you could sort of see the footprint there.
Eisner.
Yeah,
but it's beautiful. So now, so like, just walk me through like this page. Like this is you're doing this all on a tablet on a Cintiq?
No, iPad. I said bye-bye to the Cintiq a while ago.
Beautiful.
Never to see the Cintiq again, hopefully. Bye-bye Adobe. And so it's only iPad and Procreate, this stuff. But again, I mean, this was just done for the pitch itself, but otherwise I would probably sketch. I would do the initial sketching on paper, I think.
And it's better. It's so interesting that you had mentioned it earlier, but like it's so funny how like it does come down to a pencil in your hand on a piece of paper when it comes to kind of like, I don't know, like that's where the magic combination happens of
well, there is something that is the creative cosmic powers. They don't exist in the digital
No,
somehow. I don't know
it,
why.
I would say I draw exclusively, when I have to draw, like in a digital environment. But so often I will, like, if I have to like come up with something, my initial thumbnail is going to be pencil in my notebook,
Mm,
and then I will just take a snapshot of that, put it into whatever program I'm going to work in,
yeah,
scale it up, and move things around, and then start drawing over that, like, because like there's that frustration that like, I think comic book artists all share. Like when you look at your thumbnails and then you look at your page, you're like, what happened? What happened to all this energy that I had in these little tiny thumbnails?
yeah,
Where did it all go?
yeah. No, why is that? Why is the sketch always better? I don't know, but yeah.
Yeah.
Uh, but actually, I mean, I do think that the iPad is a step forward, or somewhere in between the sketchbook, and I mean, it is much better. Yeah, to me that was like a re-ignition to discover that stuff, and
Were you
to
working?
just sell all the Cintiqs, throw them
Were you,
out the
were you
window.
working like in an environment previous to digital, like professionally? Were you working in a pen and paper world?
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't pre-digital, I guess, but I for the longest time I held out. I was scanning originals
Hmm.
rather than. No, I came late to the Cintiq,
Okay.
and I never sort of understood how to maneuver the Wacom board. I mean, the sort of just the old kind of with
Yeah.
not the yeah,
Yeah.
you know.
The
But it,
Intuos, whatever it was.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that was it.
So that didn't work for me. And yeah, when I sort of finally used the Cintiq, I mostly used it for coloring
Hmm.
and so on. But gradually, I came to accept it, and just used that for a bunch of years. But I was never really happy doing it. So yeah, so the iPad was like a great revelation.
Yeah,
Uh,
I've yet to get my hands on an iPad Pro with any of the programs, and so when I do get my chance to you know grab one and play with one, I'm really excited because I recall when I first touched a Cintiq, and I'm like, oh well, I get this. Like I can work directly into this world. I like that, and I used it originally for doing design work, so it was really I kind of felt I was able to sort of like what was that Minority Report with Tom Cruise, where he's moving all the things around back,
yeah,
whatever that was. Like that's what it kind of felt like working on design projects. I felt like I could grab type and I could manipulate type in a way that was a little more direct than using a mouse. It just kind of felt natural.
yeah,
Um, but um, I you are of a growing number of people when we talk about working in the digital environment, that the iPad seems to be really coming up as like the chosen environment. um
yeah, yeah. I would think so. I mean, it is almost as good as paper,
mhm.
but more convenient, obviously. No, I mean, Cintiq is also amazing, of course, or it
Yeah.
was, but yeah. But once I discovered, actually, the thing, because I was trying to migrate to iPad immediately once it came, but I didn't figure out that I had to get one of these textured screen
Surfaces.
protector. Yeah,
Okay.
because without it, it was just very awkward to use it. So I sort of bought one and put it in the drawer for years, and then I finally sort of went and bought a screen protector with a
Okay.
texture, and then it's like, okay, this
Ah,
works.
yeah.
So
it, yeah, I mean, it's so I mean, full disclosure, I own, I think, three Wacom products. That I have an Intuos somewhere in a closet that hasn't been used in 15 years, maybe 10, 12, I don't know how many years. And then I have a large Cintiq, which just stopped working.
oh,
And that was and they were like, oh
yeah,
yeah, it'll be $900 to fix it. I'm like, $900. I spent whatever $100, to buy the thing. I'm like, I'll be $3,000 into this thing. I'm like, forget that. And then I got a smaller one for work. And that's just been my sort of go-to if I need to do anything. When I don't know. I mean, anyone want to buy a used 21-inch Cintiq, that doesn't work, but for $900, you can make it work. I'll sell it to you for $150, and you pay the shipping. So there you go. It's my deal. Stick to it.
I think you have a fan base, right? So they will just.
Oh yeah,
they will want to own it just for that. So,
oh yeah. I'll let Gary sign it. So it's interesting because I think I remember when I was teaching design and the school I taught at, they taught digital photography, or they taught photography, commercial photography, and this was in the late 90s. And I kept saying I don't they're teaching them how to actually take pictures of film and all this stuff. And I get that there's a skill set in there, but it should all be digital. The second the digital camera came into a professional level, film was an art form. It was no longer, a production medium. And I feel like if I was sending my kid off to art school, I'm like, here's your iPad Pro, good luck, because I think that's kind of where you need what you need now.
Yeah, almost, except that sketchbook.
Well, yeah, but I mean, rather than buying a workstation or a Mac Pro, I think you the economics of it are so much more. You can make a comic now with a sketchbook and an iPad Pro and a pencil. You go.
Yeah, I agree.
I don't know. It's. I mean, yes. Let's time out for a second. You can also make a comic book with a pencil and a piece.
No, you can do that too. Yeah,
you don't need the technology.
No, but there is still something. There is. I mean, you were sort of showing a thing before that I made and said this is Möbius. That is sort of one thing in the whole collection there, which is sort of drawn with a dip pen. And I don't know. Yeah. So this is not digital at all. This is real pen and paper for this. It's like what is it called? Inktober.
Oh sure, yeah.
For Instagram. I'm not saying this is sublime line art or anything, but there is something different about the line. There's something that is not. You can't replicate it for whatever reason. Not yet, anyway.
No, I mean, as good as all the brushes, and pen, sort of emulations are, they still I haven't seen a line that can sort of really compete with a beautiful brush line. There's an art form and sort of a stability in but there's a humanity in the line that just isn't. The computer can't duplicate that. I don't know. Here we are waxing philosophically about digital lines, but it makes a difference. I mean, it does make a difference. And I've honestly, I've never done a full comic book page digitally. I've done cover artwork from beginning to end in that environment, but I haven't done a page. So I don't know. It's got to be faster. It's got to be faster because you can cheat, right?
You can cheat, of course. I don't know. I mean, but the counter argument is that you can also sort of redraw anything any number of times, and you will. So therefore, it will take longer. I mean, I don't know. I don't know what it comes down to, but I think that could be a danger also.
Yeah, because I think if you don't think it's, I guess if something has less sort of intrinsic value because it's not permanent, I mean, your mind is different. Like when you're focusing with ink loaded up on a pen or a brush, your mind is focused. Like you are in that moment of going, okay, here's what I'm doing. This is the plan. And here we go.
Sure. No, I mean, and I feel that is, I mean, it even applies to physical inking. I mean, if you're sort of inking a tiny panel, you don't mind redrawing that 20 times. You know you can do it. But if you have like a splash thing, yeah, somehow your mind will focus more, and you will not redraw that thing.
Yeah.
Most likely.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's really interesting because I think you can apply that in so many aspects of like, of writing. Like when people wrote like on a typewriter on paper, like your mind had to be really agile and thinking ahead as you're typing so you can get down what you need to get down versus going backspace, backspace, select, cut, paste, move. Like all that stuff that we do when we're writing wasn't an option. That like you had to have the idea down and figure it out and then execute it on paper. So I'm not advocating for going back to a manual world, but they're like our brains are truly plastic, and it's an interesting thing how we've moved, from one world to another world when we make things.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. It's an interesting thing, and I'm sure there are very smart people out there who do very, very informative studies on this kind of stuff, which would benefit both of us if we read these studies and become greater creators in our own right. But I'm not going to do that. Are you going to do that?
No, I'm not. No.
No. Okay. So talk to me about this project and how did this project come together for you, and what does it look like for your process? Because you said like this stuff was presentation work for this project, which looks a little bit more than presentation work to me. But how did it first come to you? Like what was it like? Did Axel come to you and say, hey, I've got this story idea? I mean,
yeah, he came to me and he had written a short story, and he said, how about this? How about making an anthology?
Yeah.
And I said, no, let's not make an anthology.
Right.
And then we sort of agreed to stretch that one story, or at least sort of extrapolate from that one. And yeah, that's how it sort of started.
When did the seed of this kind of get planted?
Yeah, it's not that long ago. I mean, we were discussing it sometime late last year, and then during all of my quarantine times and self-isolation, going back and forth to the UK, I started drawing this stuff.
Yeah.
So I was doing it in November, December, or something like that. Yeah.
Right on.
And yeah.
So not too long ago. So this is kind of a fresh project in the terms of.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it is.
So it didn't like sort of come up before, COVID and then just get put on the shelf, because we've had plenty of people who have had those projects where they're like.
Yeah. No, I didn't. No, I had other things. I was sort of, I did sort of plan. Okay, let's do, because COVID made me stuck in China, and even though I've been traveling now, I sort of predict that I will be stuck in China again, and so yeah, that's one aspect. But the other one is also obviously it's time. I want to do a comic.
Yeah.
So I did have a handful of things that I were juggling at the same time. But this one happened to, I finished it up, first of them, and sort of we started sending it around.
That's cool. So, like, give me a picture, because like the American market it's broad, but it's relatively clear. Like there are, maybe 10 to 12 sort of players that you can kind of go, okay, well, I'm going to send it to these people. Or if you're going to send it to traditional publishers. But like, how did you guys approach this? What was how many people did you send it to?
I sent it to all the big European publishers, and Image, and maybe that was it, I think. And yeah.
And what's the at least enlighten me, but like what's the process for the European publishers? Like what do they want to see for a book proposal?
I don't know. I mean, this is what I showed you is
Yeah.
more or less what I showed them, except for it's a more detailed synopsis that I removed. But yeah, so we just sort of we winged it. And, yeah,
Okay.
I have no clue what they were sort of expecting to see, but this is what they got. Yeah.
Right on.
So yeah.
But and I'm a big fan of the naive position. Like I'm like I think we can sort of bog ourselves down details of like what the rules are in so many ways. And I say that being a person who loves following rules. So it's not that I'm some rebel out there, cutting my own pathway. It's but there is something really sort of great about that, because if you just do the thing and you're like, here's the thing, like people are like, oh, you didn't do but it's really good. Like, okay,
Mm-hmm.
let's talk to them. Like there's
Yeah,
a value in
I
it.
think so. Yeah, yeah. No,
So,
but aren't the rules and all of this other stuff is made for people who can't sort of create pages, right? I mean, so they have to sort of.
yeah.
But if you make the pages, well, is anyone going to sort of object to them? I don't
No,
know.
right. No, of course.
Hmm.
So I mean, so speaking of, so you have pages, like there are pages. Um, are you like, these sequential sample art pages? I mean, are these like, are you going to redo these? Are you going to leave them as like, what's your
No,
vision?
I'm going to redo it all. I mean, I had a sort of very different, or we had a different idea for the formatting when we did this, and it was not really a graphic novel, but now it is.
Mhm.
Uh, yeah, I thought it would be sort of issues, but
Okay.
so yeah, no, and I thought it would be issues, and I thought it would be a manga format.
Okay.
So
Oh, cool.
yeah,
Oh, that's awesome.
but
I
it's
love,
not going to be. So
I
yeah,
know, but
so
I love that. I do love that format. I love that it feels really personal. I like that.
yeah, I also like the idea. I feel that I could sort of churn out these pages. I think I could do 4 per day if I just apply myself. If it's manga sized.
See, I know you're on the other side of the world. Maybe our connection's broken. Did you say 4 a day?
Yeah, but I'm of course lying. I'm
All
just
right.
saying that I think I can do it, but I obviously I couldn't. But maybe I don't know. I'm thinking that yeah,
Yeah,
I could
unbelievable.
at the very least do 1 spread per day.
There you go.
I mean,
Yeah,
and if I could do 1 spread, why couldn't I do 2? I don't know. But I mean, but if you're sort of scaling it up and doing kind of
sure.
blueberry types size, then I can't do that. Then it needs to be have a higher fidelity and be more
That's it.
polished.
That's super interesting to say that, like in that thought process, like the sort of the execution, like the size that it's going to end up, like here, like comic book. So like this regular size comic book, like this demands a certain amount of work to be put in,
Yeah,
and then like, but if you scale it up, to this magazine size, there you go. Like
yeah.
now, like the complexity seems to get much greater. But then again, manga is super detailed, so who am I to say?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I believe what I'm saying anyway, because I mean, whenever there's these artist editions of sort of masterpieces and they
Yeah,
blow it up, it
yep,
always looks better anyway. So I don't know. I
glorious.
mean, yeah,
It's glorious. Yeah, I mean, like when
yeah,
the idea, but like but I do get what you're saying. Like, I mean, it's almost like the size of the product was sort of dictating. You're like, okay, cool. Like, I don't have to have as many panels. I can tell the story in a
yeah,
more open storytelling. I love that
yeah.
city shot there. By the way, that's great. That's
No, no,
great.
you're right. Actually, that is it has more to do with the page layout and the fidelity. You're right. Actually,
Yeah,
that is what it is.
that's kind of cool.
It's
So when that's like, hey, you're coming back, and now we're going to be, was it A4 size?
something I don't know.
I was trying to
Yeah,
sound cosmopolitan in world traveled, and you just
yeah.
you just
Okay. Well, yeah. No, I don't know, but No, actually, I think the dimensions will be fairly similar to the American comic book, only scaled up slightly.
Okay.
I think that is what it will be. But
Yeah.
and yeah, I don't know if I should be discussing this. I haven't sort of signed it yet, so it's
I don't know what we're
but
talking about. I have no
no,
idea.
no,
We're just
me
talking.
either.
I just found this artwork on the internet, and I'm just talking.
Actually, yeah, and it
And
belonged to me, so you called me, and that's it. Yeah,
right. So but it's kind, but it is kind of cool. So I mean, I'm amazed that you're good, that you would go back. So I mean, so many lazy artists would be like, okay, I'm done with that half of the book. But I think it's great that you're going to go back in and really kind of
yeah.
re-envision this.
No, but I also, I mean, the thing is, well, if you're sort of, yeah, maybe this is also, I've done so many pitches in my days, and
Yeah.
you're always just, it's a conceit, right? You're sort of deceiving the audience. You're pretending that this is part of a bigger thing, but actually, all the things that are sort of alluded to, you have no answer to it. It's
Yeah.
just you're just pretending. But if you're actually going to make a book, you have to sort of do the different things. You can't just sort of, I don't know if I'm
No,
making
no, no,
sense,
yeah.
but yeah.
Yeah. Well,
So yeah,
no, no, no. And you're totally right, because like, I mean, a big part of like the comic book, American comic book, superhero comic book business as a freelance illustrator is, getting the gigs. So if you were not busy getting paid to do the work, you were making sample pages, and you were
mm,
making sample pages of comics that you wanted to work on. And for me, I would write these stories, these 5-page, 6-page, 4-page stories of the characters that I wanted to draw. And then I would draw these pages and then bring them in and be like, here you go,
mm,
and give me work. And but the conceit is I'm creating this optimal story that's happening in this very short period of time, to show off me. Like, what can I do in
mhm.
4 pages that's going to make you go, oh man, you've got like car action, you've got fighting action, you've got a little bit of people talking action stuff going, and that was all the idea. It wasn't just like, here are 4 pages from a story. you know
Yeah, no, exactly. And
yeah.
it is sort of forward pointing, so people will also what will happen next? But
Yes.
you don't know. I don't know. No one knows. It's because
Right.
there is no next. But yeah,
Yeah. No.
uh,
Yeah. I mean, it's like, like it's like there's an ellipses at the end of it. It's just dot dot dot. Like,
yeah.
yeah. No, I mean, it's an interesting kind of like thought process. So like looking at this page, so did you thumbnail these out like on paper?
No, I did not for
Okay.
these. No, not for any of it actually. No, this was just me in a flea. What is it called? A hotel in Heathrow in the UK,
Oh, okay.
being locked up. So I
Imprisoned.
in prison. I could only work in. I mean, I had no workstation, so I couldn't draw anywhere. I was just laying
Okay.
in bed doing this. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So wow. So this is all you were doing, your sort of your layouts, your rough initial layouts, based off like, what kind of level of the script was it? Was it a very finished script that Axel wrote?
Yeah, for the sort of beginning part, sure, but
Yeah.
it's not. It's a story script. It's not a panel or page
Okay.
breakdown kind of thing. So, I mean, you can tell what he sort of has in mind for story
Yeah.
beats or where the page turn is and so on, but he hasn't sort of
Okay. Well,
specified each panel.
so let's talk about that. Like, so you're getting that breakdown, but you're not getting a script, a page to panel script. So like, what's your storytelling process from there? Like, what do you do? Like, you get this thing, there's a bunch of words on a document. Are you like, how do you do that? Like, how do you go from that to the page?
Yeah, I mean that's where this. If it was a manga with a very high page count, I feel it becomes easy actually, because
Okay.
then you only have like very tiny segments on each page, so it's easy to space it out and sort of decide where you need a page turn, let's say,
Right.
to get to the reveal. But the moment you have a different format, then it becomes more complex, right? Then you need to sort of fit everything. And
Sure.
how do I do it? I don't know.
Well, I mean, how did you do it? I mean, how did you for Hero? Because I mean, like, if he didn't give you the sort of page 3, panel 1, panel 2, panel 3, you had to make those choices. So
yeah. I mean, that is the fun part, right? I mean,
yeah,
that is so that is how do I tell this then?
Mhm.
What kind of panels do we need? Can we actually just remove dialogue and show it instead? Uh, yeah, I mean, to explain how that is done, I don't know. I feel that it is done like everything else. You sketch. Once
Mhm.
I sketch a thing, things. I mean, then I activate some other part of the brain. I don't
Right.
know what it's doing,
Because like,
but
I
yeah.
mean, historically, I would take a script and I would sort of kind of focus. If it was a page, I would focus on, okay, if this is the page of events that have to happen here, what are the key sort of characters, like, who do I have here, what are the actions, so what has to happen, like, in motion, and how do I sort of break that up into the chunks that are going to be interesting and tell the story clearly. So I would kind of chop these pieces up,
Hmm.
and then I would say, okay, well, here's panel 1, panel 2, panel 3, panel 4, panel 5. Okay, these are what I have to work with. And then it's a matter of like, okay, what kind of angles are we going to tell here story wise? Like, so this is all sort of like, that's so the angles part is when I start thumbnailing. Like, I would go,
Hmm.
okay, now I'm going to make a rectangle and I'm going to go, okay, well, there's 5 panels. That's an interesting panel layout, because I'll be honest, I probably would look at the panel layout and then sort of work within that, structure,
Hmm. Yeah.
and
No.
then sort of say, okay, well, what is going to tell the story the clearest for this first panel? Like, here are the things that I need to happen here, and this is what needs to be happening. Okay, if I have an over the shoulder shot, I don't have to draw this whole figure and I can lead the reader's eye right into the room, because I've already done the establishing shot in the previous page or whatever it was. So, um, like, do you, is that, do you, are you, because I'm trying to like say like how you
Yeah.
prose writing and turn prose writing into page art.
Yeah, I know what you're saying, but I think maybe the first thing for me, yeah, this is very different from everything else I'm doing, like storyboarding and so on. But
Mhm.
here it is the spread, right?
Yep.
And so I will somehow have, even before I'm starting to sort of go through all of those things you're mentioning, I will have an idea of how I ideally want it to look as a
Mhm.
complete thing, as a unit, as a spread itself.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, I don't want it to sort of feel like it's top heavy or bottom heavy, or maybe I do, but then that should be intentional.
Sure.
I mean, that kind of thing. So the sort of page layout itself, that looks somewhat decent, is the first step, and then I think I sort of try to, yeah, not shoehorn precisely, but sort of make the pieces fit within that somehow. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, yeah, so so you're sitting there with a scalpel and the jigsaw puzzle and just
Yeah,
shaving the pieces so they fit.
shaving them off. Yes,
Yeah,
exactly.
and we'll just jam that one in there. No,
Yeah.
that's super interesting, because I think one of the, because, like, I mean, the beauty of the sort of the format you're discussing is that, like, you have spreads. You're looking at spreads.
Yeah.
Um, like for, Marvel Comics or DC Comics, you don't actually know exactly what page your
Yeah,
artwork is
yeah.
going to be
That
on.
seems horrible. I don't understand
No,
how anyone.
it was it was because it really all comes down to advertising sales. Like,
I
if
know.
they got lucky and they got a lot of ads in there, well, now you're like, your page ends here on this side, but then there's an ad on the other side, and then it's another leaving page, another right hand page. You're like, oh, so you have no idea. And
No, but
what
I mean, I through my childhood, I was just buying the Swedish editions of the issues of the Spider-Man and X-Men or whatever else I was collecting. So once I sort of started going to proper comic book shops with the import stuff and
Yep.
realizing what the American issues looked like, I was just utterly disgusted. It would be like bubblegum commercials, and they're just breaking up, ruining it all. It's just insane.
It's
Uh, yeah.
so you we didn't often get the luxury of knowing, when
Yeah.
something was going to happen, and I'm sure it came down a lot to the writer fighting for the pages in the book, because like, hey, they're like, listen, this is important that this page is on the right hand side. It has to
Mhm.
be on the right hand side, or everything we did didn't work. So like, I think there's probably a lot of battling going on that I, as a young dumb artist, had no idea that was happening. But que sera, sera.
Yeah. But did you sort of consider then the page turn, or did you just draw one page at a time, or what?
I couldn't be assured of it. That was the problem. So
Yeah.
my page turns are based off of the concept of page 1 was going to be on the right hand side, and
Mm.
then 2 is going to be on the left hand side, and 3 is going to be on the right hand. So odd pages are going to be the right hand side, and that was my hope that it would always end up that way. I
Mm.
don't think it always did, but that was all I had to really kind of guess. So yeah, it wasn't a perfect system, and I was probably not smart enough to really at the time to go like, just because I was more focused on getting the damn work done rather than be like calling up the editor saying, okay, so am I gonna, like, hey, I've got this thing happening here, are we gonna make sure that there's not an ad in between or something like that? So
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I wish I was smart enough and prescient enough when I was doing it. I probably would have been much more successful. Um, but yeah. So when do you start in this project?
Uh, uh, yeah, first it's going to be a bit of script writing, so
Okay.
maybe a month and a half away or something like that. I mean, I will start doing. Yeah, I haven't started yet, but I will start
No, I get that. I
pretty
mean,
soon. Just doing
and
sketching out the stuff I already know is going to be there.
right.
Yeah,
How many pages are you?
it's approximated at 200 now, but
Okay.
I'm not sure whether I don't know if there is like a limit to it, or whether I can. I don't know
Right.
if I can do 500. I don't know. I'm not going to, but I mean, I don't know what the
Well, I guess,
rules
yeah.
are actually. Yeah.
So somebody has a document somewhere that says how long your book can be.
Yeah.
Um, and pay attention to that, because that'll probably be helpful in the long run.
Yeah.
But okay, so I mean, so you're looking. So this is going to keep you busy for a good chunk of the remainder of the year, at least into the fall.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, depending on if you're. I don't know. I don't know how fast I can be. I mean, I'm just sort of sitting here saying things, so I don't know. But I hope to kind of challenge myself. I would like to, because the thing is, the only thing I ever sort of like that I draw myself is the stuff that goes fast. I mean, that is.
Right. Where you're
Yeah.
not. I yeah, Jamie Jones, who's been a guest on the show, is many times, like, Jamie's very much in that sort of mentality. Like, he knows what he wants to do, and he just puts it out there on the paper. And I think
Yeah.
I think that's where the magic for him. That's where it happens.
Yeah, yeah. No, I feel like if I'm struggling, it's wrong. I mean, somehow,
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah, that's
I don't
awesome.
know.
So then next year, this graphic novel will be printed.
I hope so. Yeah, yeah,
I'm also only going off of guessing here, but you're excited about this.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, you can tell
Yeah.
from my. Yeah, okay. No,
Yeah.
but I
No,
am. It's going to be great.
I mean,
I look forward to it.
yeah. I mean, it's super exciting to, I mean, like, it's going to be great to sort of like follow your progression in this, over the course of this next year of your, making this work, this thing that's like sort of part of who you are, like making a comic book and putting it out there. And I think that's great. And so, yeah, it's going to be exciting. Your wife can't wait to get you out of the house. She's like, "Are you done with the comic? Can you leave?" It's going to be exciting. Um,
Yeah.
that's Daniel. I'm excited about it. Like I think it's pretty exciting. I know what it's like to enter into a new thing, and to get to do this thing that you wanted to do, but you haven't done yet. And I think it's exciting. When people are given that opportunity to present themselves. Like, oh, we're doing this, so you're going to do great.
Yeah.
You're going to
Yeah,
do
I hope
great.
so. Yeah.
I'm really excited. I mean, from what I've seen of it, like what the pitch work was, I mean, the style's great. The I love the noir look. I like the action. Like it's got all the good stuff. So you'll
Thank you.
we'll keep up. Anytime like you're posting stuff about this stuff, we'll put it out there so people can keep tabs on it, because I think it's kind of cool. Like, I mean, I don't listen, man. Like everyone's got their first big project, when it comes to the comic industry, and it's kind of cool when you get to see people get that thing happen. So that's what's happening. And then you'll be in San Diego, and you'll be beating off all the fans in a year. It'll be crazy.
I will be beating up the fans.
Yeah.
What do you say? Yeah. Okay.
Beating them off, like
beating them off.
Yeah,
Yeah.
get away.
Abuse them.
Yeah.
Just
sure.
Yeah. Who is this newcomer?
Bodyguards. Yeah. All right, my friend. So, like,
I should have given props more to Axel. He's we did this together.
Yeah.
He's a great guy, Axel Stuttgart.
Yeah.
Anyway,
he's got a great name, so I'm already a fan.
Yeah, it's a great name.
Yeah.
That it is.
Yeah. So we will keep this up to date, so anybody who is watching this will be able to follow what's happening on our thing, or go to Daniel_Hansen_seller _9. I can't believe there are 8 more Daniel Hansen sellers on Instagram.
Who would have thought? Yeah.
Very popular. And follow Daniel, because he posts tons of cool stuff. It really is. You do. I don't know how you do it. I think you have a big factory of people just doing artwork, and you're just pulling out what you want and putting it online. That's my guess.
I'm just old. I've done a lot of stuff.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
I'm old too. That sucks.
Yeah.
Follow Daniel. Check him out.
Do it.
Yeah, do it. He's doing some great stuff.
What do you got to lose? You can just unfollow. I mean,
it's like that much of your thumb effort, not that much effort.
Yeah.
I mean,
then all right, no more of this.
Yeah, we can. All right, Daniel, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Stay tuned. It's really great meeting you visually. Maybe one day we'll meet each other personally.
Sure.
Yeah. In Sweden, next in Sweden.
We'll beat down the fans together.
That's right. All right, everyone. Thank you, and